what I have here set up with the phone. We are now live. Okay. So we're covering church history from Jesus to today, right? So it's obviously going to be an overview, but and the textbook we're using, in each chapter, it'll have like 3 or 4 people who were a part of kind of shaping Christianity, and it gives like a biographical vignette. What's a vignette? It's like a small picture, right? Kind of like a word picture. So a vignette is like a short, story-driven illustration. So they do like a short biographical vignette of each of these 3 or 4 people every chapter to talk about how they contributed to church history, kind of how the church developed. And so we'll be going through, we're going to go through about half the chapters in the book. And in those chapters, we might cover 30 to 60% of the material. So this is it's a hefty book, but we're not going to cover all of it. We're going to sprinkle in a lot of discussion and stuff like that. Okay. So you'll see under the objectives on the syllabus that it says students will become acquainted with the history of the Christian church from the time of Jesus to the present day. So I didn't say like we'll know thoroughly. I didn't say we'll understand. I didn't say we'll be able to recognize it. We'll become acquainted with. Okay. So it's just like become acquainted with it. And then I also say students will develop skills in close reading and note-taking, and they will demonstrate the ability to summarize broad concepts in written and oral formats. So that's one of the things I want you to be able to do is kind of get used to reading a dense text and pulling out main ideas, and then being able to summarize those main ideas. Because my goal for you, second paragraph under objectives, the broad goal of the course is to equip students to understand their place within the big story of Christianity and to articulate their beliefs within a diverse Christian landscape. So in the first theology course in 9th grade, you kind of covered the biblical storyline. In this course, we're going to kind of cover the Christian story so that you can say, now I understand what's different about some denominations or why this or that seems important to some Christians and not to others. And then hopefully you'll be able to summarize some of those concepts so you can understand kind of what you believe and what you don't, or be able to explain what you believe and why, or understand where some of your beliefs come from. Cool? Any questions on any of that so far? Cool. So you can see here, I created an extensive course outline, okay? And this text came with learning objectives. So I went through and highlighted the ones that I think we want to cover, and then basically copied and pasted them into here. And so you'll see that we're splitting up the course into, the first big unit is from like Jesus to the popes. So it's like the story's gonna start in the textbook with like, so Jesus died and rose again, ascended into heaven. There's some people left over. What are they gonna do? That's the very beginning, right? Then we're gonna go all the way up to when we start to have popes. So we'll figure out kind of where they came from. That's the first overall unit, okay? And they're broken down there by specific learning objectives. And then unit 2 is sort of broadly the Reformation. Who's familiar with the Reformation? Raise your hand if you're familiar with the Reformation. Cool. Either one of you tell me, what is the Reformation?
It's when there was basically a divide maybe not a divide, but there was a faction within the Catholic Church that wanted to kind of leave and create their own thing.
Fantastic. That's a fair summary. We will go more in depth. So if you've encountered that in a history course before?
No.
Oh, you have. Okay. What history class did you encounter it in?
World history.
World history. Okay. Cool. So how would you summarize the Reformation?
We didn't really go that in depth in
Sure.
it because it was just middle school, but basically it was more like about Martin Luther and how he did it. How
Perfect.
The part of the world that he
And then what history class are you guys in right now?
did in world history.
Okay, so you're going to cover it there sometime this semester. We may get to it first. So we'll go more in depth on some of the theological aspects. So what Ethan said is correct, that at one time there was only primarily the Catholic Church. There's also Eastern Orthodox, but since we're in the West, that didn't really affect us much. It was primarily the Catholic Church, and then kind of started with Martin Luther, and then spreading to a bunch of other people. Folks said, hey, Catholic Church, you're making some decisions we don't agree with. We don't believe that all truth should come directly through the Pope. We want to read the Bible for ourselves and deduce for ourselves what we believe. And then that's where you got all of the other Christianities that you know today. So the Reformation is sort of this turning point where we go from primarily one church with one hierarchical structure to tons of denominations, uncountable today, right? So we'll cover the Reformation from a historical, theological perspective. And so you can see there, like, we kind of begin, like, what was the climate that set the stage for the Reformation? Then we do the German Reformation, that's the Martin Luther thing. Then the Swiss Reformation, that's Calvinists who kind of give rise to the Baptist traditions and some of the other Protestants, okay? Yep. And then finally, so that's our second unit, is the Reformation. Then the third unit is sort of, once people started coming to America, what happened to Christianity in America, and then how has that affected the way we evangelize the world? So, meaning missions to the rest of the world. So what we find is like where Christianity is growing fastest right now is in like Asia and South America. So why is that, right? They'll cover some of that stuff. What role did religion play in the civil rights movement in America? What, stuff like that, okay? We'll cover some of that towards the end. So we're going to do a fair amount of reading, okay? Maybe as much reading as you've ever done in any course before. It's primarily going to be out of this one text. And so some of that, and particularly in the beginning we'll do more of this, some of that we'll do together. So have you ever read aloud in class before?
Yeah.
In what classes?
English,
History before.
Cool. Okay, so that won't seem completely odd.
No.
Okay, so because in the beginning what I want to be able to do, because one of our goals is to help you read dense texts and process them, we'll do that together at the beginning, okay? So some of that will happen in class, but more and more I want you to be reading at home, so we have more of class open for discussion and other kinds of activities and stuff like that, okay? But the way we're going to check your reading is through a form of note-taking called Cornell notes, okay? Who's familiar with Cornell notes? Okay, cool. We're going to spend a good amount of class today going over it, okay? And so I'll cover that in depth here in a moment. So your notes will have to be thorough and complete. The thoroughness of your notes. And sort of like, if you read a section and there's like one whole idea you completely missed in your notes, that would be incomplete, right? So I'm evaluating you on being able to read the text and pull out the important information, okay? And that's your homework grade. These percentages are a little off because I thought the final exam was 15%, but it's only 10%. So, yeah, whatever. Yep. So whatever 90% of 20% is, so 18%. So homework and quizzes will be 18% of your grade. Okay? I can amend the thing, or you can just be cool with it. Next, there'll be quizzes. So if you look on the course outline, at the end of each one of those subheadings, so like a resurrection people, right, on the course outline, or creeds and councils, or city of God in the dark ages. At the end of each one of those, we'll take a quiz, and that quiz will be multiple choice and short answer. So probably not unlike the quizzes you took in 9th grade theology. Okay? And so again, that's, can you summarize ideas? Are you grasping the content? Yada, yada. And then at the end of each unit, I'm thinking we'll do some sort of presentation project type thing. Okay? Around, I'll give you three to five options, and you pick one. Okay? And then that'll be your test grade. And then for your final exam, what I'm thinking is a research project where I will give you I'll find articles, okay? 4 of them that deal with things that are happening in Christianity today. And then you relate it back to something we studied in the class. and give a presentation about what you think about it. So one is like, there's a terminology that gets used in the church world is like the worship wars. So it's people debating about what worship services should look like. And so I might find an article and you have to read and maybe do a little other research and then look back in when was there a time in church history when there was a similar kind of thing going on, and then so therefore what do I think about this today, right? Something like that. And I debated whether it was a paper or a presentation. There'll probably be some sort of hybrid. That'll be your final. And I'll leave a couple weeks for us to work on that. Cool? Any questions about any of that? Okay. So late assignments, late homework, primarily is what we're talking about here. So like, if it's brought in anytime after the day that it's due, it's a 20% deduction. So I grade homeworks out of 10 points. It's just kind of simple that way. So I would take off 2 points out of 10. Okay. Then, so similarly, similar to what I mentioned about math class earlier, like if the notes come in, what did I put here? Quiz or test? Yep, after the quiz. So like there will be 3 readings or so that go with a resurrection people, 2 or 3 readings. If you bring in notes after we've taken the quiz on that section, no points. Okay? So you just have to keep up with your note taking. Cool?
Cool.
Thoughts, questions, comments, concerns, cheap shots?
Would the final exam, no, never mind. Would the presentation still be 51% of the?
No, it'll be 54%.
That's what. Should we take notes on loose leaf so we can turn them in? Or
Yes.
okay.
Yes. That's a good idea. Good question.
So
Take
they're
notes
in the
on loose
binder.
leaf. For those of you viewing at home.
So don't use this.
You'll just have to tear it out and then somehow keep track of it.
I have a folder in there, I'm not gonna use it.
Okay, and I would recommend like either a folder with binding or a 3-ring binder, so you can have the notes in a notebook where you can turn the pages. Because what you'll want to do, I mean, we'll talk about it in a moment, but the format of notes that we're talking about are set up to be studied from. So it's like they're created to be a study guide. Okay? Any other thoughts, questions, comments, concerns, cheap shots? Fantastic. Ethan, you're the only one who hasn't had a question yet.
I think that, I mean, it's just more of my opinion, I think that it would be better if, rather than taking very, very detailed notes, we take briefer notes and have an oral discussion.
Yes, so we'll talk about how what you're saying fits in. Cool?
Sure.
Because I think, again, I want you to show me that you can pull an idea out of the notes. So they can be brief if you want, as long as you're actually summarizing the ideas that are in the text. Right? If I see that you got everything, great, it doesn't have to be long. And we'll talk about kind of how we can edit in a minute. Cool?
Sure.
Cool. And for me, having notes that are thorough, right? Thorough doesn't mean long, but thorough prepares you well for a discussion. Cool? Let me stop this video now that I've streamed everything I'm going to stream.
Are we gonna go back over the corner notes thing?
We are. I have 2 handouts for you.